is Shawn Lyon, who's with Marathon Pipeline. He's the, I'm gonna look because I don't want to get it wrong. He's the Vice President of Operations of Marathon Pipeline, and I'm going to tell a little story about Shawn before he gets started, just to make him sweat before he comes up here. One of the nice things, with my government hat on, I know how slow government operates sometimes, and we heard that this morning a little bit too. And with nonprofit, I know how slow nonprofits can work sometimes because we're always scrambling for resources and stuff. Marathon came out to Bellingham, I don't remember, what was it, a couple years ago? Yep. The president of Marathon, and I think there was 3 or 4 other folks, came to Bellingham, and we walked the creek where the tragedy had happened, and we met, and we went out for dinner that evening. And as we were sitting around having dinner with all these folks, I raised the question that we'd heard some troubling information that Ohio was trying to pass some one-call law that was going to exempt gathering lines, one of Linda's issues. And Shawn kind of scratched his head and looked funny about that, and he said, we haven't heard anything about that. And it was 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening on Bellingham time, and he pulled out his cell phone and called some poor person back in Ohio and said, I want to get to the bottom of what's going on with this gathering line. It must have been a government regulatory person. And by the time dinner was done, he'd got calls back from those people, and Marathon was already working their government regulatory person to make sure that the Ohio law either got held or fixed because they didn't want all those gathering lines exempt from one call. And it was like, oh, private industry really can move fairly rapidly when they want to. And that stuck in my mind how well that worked. We've had kind of a long-term relationship with Marathon for a number of years now. I was invited to Findlay, I can't remember how many years ago that was, 7 or 8 years ago now, to do an all-employees conference. And so we've worked with Marathon fairly closely since then, and Shawn's going to talk a little bit about how they've tried to go beyond the requirements of 1162 to listen actively to citizens and then implement some of those recommendations.
Okay, right there. Well, at first I thought I would have to go after Jim, but now I have to go after Carl's introduction. So I thought you were going to tell another story, so I was somewhat relieved. I want to thank you for having me here, an opportunity to share with you how we listen and learn from the public. Oftentimes we are asked, why do you go to the Pipeline Safety Trust Conference? And the answer is really simple. We go to listen and learn. It is that simple. Because we realize we're not perfect and we have a lot to learn. And last year at this very conference, we had a great listening opportunity and we learned from it. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So what we listened to last year, there were some residents' concerns about a large project that was going on in North America. And people didn't like how they were being treated, how their property was handled, how the communications went. And like a lot of pipelines, we have other projects going on under where our pipelines are. And specifically, we have one in Kentucky that has just gone on for the past 3 years. And it's a replacement project over a crude line we have. And we've affected landowners for 3 or 4 months at a time and tried to work with them. But you know, we never asked ourselves, what do our residents, our landowners, think about us? So after that conference, we went back and we said we need to listen. So we instituted a method that we've been doing, and it's not statistics, so Jim, bear with me. It's called focus groups. And we've had tremendous success with focus groups, specifically targeted focus groups. And it's a pretty simple process. We will invite people to come in to one central location and have a third-party facilitator administer questions. And those questions, and they are videotaped and audio taped, and they know that because we want to utilize direct from their mouth what they're saying so we can improve our effectiveness. So we did that. We had 2 separate group sessions right along where this project had occurred. So what did we learn? We learned we've got some room for improvement. We learned that they want communication that is ongoing and specific to their property. If you had a big excavator roll up in your front yard and want to go to your backyard, wouldn't you want to know what's going on? And we learned in pockets we would do okay, but at pockets we didn't have enough communication. We also learned, like a lot of the speakers have talked about, that two-way communication. They want to talk to someone in person. They don't want to talk to an email. They don't want to talk to a postcard. They want to talk to someone in person. And the other thing we learned is that before a project starts, you have to have trust with your landowners. Because if you don't have that trust when you start, it's usually not going to come through the project. And so before the project starts is as important as the project or after the project. So after those learnings, we started to develop a tool. And I'm going to share some examples. This is a pretty simple presentation. And we have examples of all these tools over at that table there. You're welcome to take throughout the conference here. If we run out, feel free to contact me, and I'll be glad to get them to you. But we developed this packet, and it's called Partnering for Pipeline Safety. And this packet will go to all residents, not only on this project, but future projects. And we'll meet with them and leave this with them. And not only does it just have a bunch of words in it, it has pictures of people. People want to associate a name with a face. And not just one, just like someone brought up earlier, they want to call someone and address their specific concerns. And if they can't get that person, they want to call someone else. They don't want to leave a voicemail. They don't want to send an email. They want to talk to someone. So there's 2 or 3, and in fact, the person that's in here is actually at this conference. So we're continuing to receive feedback, and we've actually asked the focus group, what would you keep? And we've gotten feedback that said, I would keep that if you're doing a big project along that's going to affect my property. And we've got more improvements to come, but we look forward to utilizing this tool in future projects. I want to talk a little bit about our internal process of how do we listen in Marathon Pipeline. First, our strategic plan touches on listening and partnering with landowners. First, we take very seriously being guardians of the public. That's our #1 priority. More than business, more than even our employee safety, being guardians of the public. Secondly, we want to have a long-term partnership with our landowners. So that drives us to listen to many venues and avenues. First, external stakeholders. Being at this conference, Pipeline Safety Trust is one of those. Our own residents, focus groups, our regulators, PHMSA. Harold has been out to visit us, his staff, his team, all not only at the federal level, but at the state level. Pipeline incidents, hit and near miss data. We have pipeline industry data, but we also have internal data. About twice a week, we have an incident that someone has either hit our pipeline or had a near miss. So we have plenty of opportunities to learn from that. API, AOPL industry improvement initiatives. Andy Black and Peter Lidiak are here at this conference and have come routinely year after year. They lead us as an industry to partner and develop working committees that work exactly on the stuff that Harold's talking about, that I'm talking about, that Jim's talking about. And I will say this industry does work together. We share stuff. We share all those things over there. We gladly share with anyone, any of our competitors or our peers. And then finally, the measurements. So we take all that, how we listen, we evaluate, we prioritize it, and then we go to learn. And our best way to learn, we have found, is through targeted education. Not everyone at once. We target farmers. We target schools. We target residential owners. We target business owners. We target agencies. We target governments that our pipeline goes across. So here are some examples. In 2011, we developed a farming postcard with magnet. So what did we listen and how did we hear it? We had a farmer focus group session, and there was a couple misconceptions about that session when we pulled out of it. The farmers thought that all pipelines were at least 4 feet deep. Not true. The farmers thought that because it's made out of steel, their equipment won't puncture it. Not true. Also, the PPTS advisory, which is the Pipeline Performance Tracking System, sorry, I go by acronyms in our company, said that 75% of all hits are from farmers. So the learning was we need to target and help educate the farmers along our pipelines. So we did some farmer education. We developed a postcard and a magnet that said, if you're going deeper than 16 inches, call 811. And the postcard addressed some of the misconceptions that we heard in the focus group. We've sent out over 150,000 postcards to date. Another example that we've listened and learned was in 2012, we developed a safe digging guide for residents. This one for a long time has, I think, been nagging the industry and us as an operator that PST, Carl, PHMSA has said, your generic postcards and your trifolds aren't cutting it. People get it, and I know what I do with junk mail. I stand right before the trash can, choo, choo, and I just shuffle it right in there, because if you don't, it'd overwhelm you. So we needed to develop a way to find a better way to reach our residents along our pipeline. So we developed what's called a safe digging guide. And we have examples over it, and it's a kit. If you'll notice, it's spiral bound. And on the very first page, Carl, you'll be very pleased to know we show a picture of the consequence. Why would we want to show a picture of the consequence to our landowners? Because it's simple. We want them to have what I call a healthy fear. We want them. It's no different than when your mom, when you were little, said, look both ways across the street. Don't touch the stove. You have to know what some of the risks and consequences are. So we took this document here, and we asked the focus group, what would you keep? And they said, I'd keep something that has heavy paper and a spiral-bound backing. We put a pair of work gloves in there, put a magnet, and we did something we've never done before, but we've gotten some great feedback on. We gave them a county area level map of the exact pipeline that is near their property. And it shows additional information, what goes in the pipe, the size of the pipeline, what we call it, what we work with PHMSA on, so they have that information in paper right before them, specific to their property. We've sent out over about 55,000 of those kits just this past year. On top of that, as you know, properties change hands. So every 6 months, we'll survey all of our property owners, and if there's a new property owner along that, we will send them a safe digging kit. The other thing we've listened and learned is that people want to hear about more of the details about your pipelines. Our landowner focus groups have told us that. Our emergency response agencies, they need to know more. Carl referred to the San Bruno. They need to know more what's there, more of the specifics. And we as an industry need to do a better job educating them and working with them on that. They are busy people. I applaud all the public servants that we have out there working on all of our behalf. The Pipeline Safety Trust says we need more information out there, transparency. You've heard that theme. So as we were redoing our website, marathonpipeline.com, we developed a module that we've never done before where you can type in your address, and what will come up is exactly the pipeline that's near where that address is, whether it's a zip code or a specific address. On top of that, we're working on an app that could go on your iPhone or your Android to do the same type of thing. We want people to know where the pipeline is. Again, because the consequence is so severe. Could be severe. 2013, we developed a farmer field tile testimonial video. We listened. How do we do that? We heard from our farmer focus group, some of the stats I've told you, but we had an incident in Indiana that really woke us up. We had this farmer that you see there, his son and grandson, were working in a farmer's field over one of our crude pipelines. They were installing drainage tile with a giant 4-foot chisel, 4 foot deep in the ground. They crossed our line 14 times as they looped and was trying to lay the pattern for their drainage tile. They just missed our pipeline. Our aerial patrol caught them, just missed our pipeline by less than a half an inch. That would have punctured the pipeline, and the results could have been catastrophic. And again, if you remember, I mentioned it's this gentleman, his son and grandson were all working together. So we went to this farmer and said, listen, we want to help not only educate you, but we want to help your whole segment, farmers. And we developed a DVD. It's about a 6-minute DVD, and there are copies over there, if you'd like one, where it's titled From One Farmer to Another. We're not in there as Marathon Pipeline, but it's farmer to farmer. and he talks about 811. He talks about how his son wanted him to call 811, but he was in too much of a hurry. And now he looks back at what a huge regret that almost was, because he was in too much of a hurry. We've sent out almost 6,000 of those DVDs. It's on YouTube. It's on several CGA sites, a lot of public sites that you can get access to. We also attend farm progress shows where we hand out this DVD. So remember I talked about those incidents that we have 1 or 2 a week? When we have one with a farmer, we will hand deliver this DVD and say, will you please watch this? Because it's powerful, and it's real, and it's genuine, and it's a true story. In 2013, we developed a series of public service announcements. We've been looking at our data and seeing that, there's a gap. People are saying that 76% of the people we surveyed, and I don't have all the statistics, Jim, but 76% have said, hey, I'm aware of 811. But when that same 76% was asked, would you call 811 if you were doing a project, only 56% said yes. There's a 20% gap. I'm aware of it, but I won't use it. We need to talk more about the consequence and educate people. And so we developed this public service announcements. There's 3 30-second commercials with John Ratzenberger. It wasn't Danica Patrick. And John Ratzenberger is the Cheers actor that was Stan on Cheers. So we've rolled that out this year. It's available on YouTube. It's available in the media. We've made it available to the industry. And it's a quick way to look at what could be the consequence, not just for pipelines, but even digging and installing a tree and you hit a water line. Just the consequence that can happen right in your own backyard as you do your home improvement projects. My final slide here is I want to leave you with a quote of one of our focus groups that we just had. And it talks about, there's a lot of talk about pipelines and there's a lot of talk about fossil fuels in our society right now. But these are essential to our economy. We need partners with the community to take time for these types of focus groups to find out how they can better partner with their communities. Then I'm fully behind them. It's upon us as operators, as an industry, to listen and learn. And that's my takeaway from that. So I thank you for your time, and thank you for having me.